Welcome to the Album Anniversary Podcast. Today's show is about And Out Come the Wolves by Rancid. It was released August 22nd, 1995, and is celebrating a 30-year anniversary. Hi, I'm your host, Caleb, or Caleb the Spy on social media, and every day on social media, I do my best to post about what I call album anniversaries. So, on the Album Anniversary Podcast, we take a look at a classic album, an album we love, or an album that's important to us on the anniversary of its release date. Albums on the show often focus on alternative rock, punk, and my strange obsession with ska in the 90s. I was super into the Christian music scene, so that comes up often on the show. And today, I'm joined by Aaron again. Welcome back. Your second show about Rancid and your third show overall.
Yeah. That seems to be the trend, but I'm happy to keep showing up as long as you're happy to keep talking about Rancid.
Yeah, I feel like I found my Rancid. This is part of this, right? Like, if I want to talk about, like, Michael W. Smith, I'm going to get tons, like, Jars of Clay. If I want to talk about Jars of Clay, I'm going to have tons of people who are like, oh, let's talk about Jars of Clay. But if I throw out Rancid on there, I have, like, 4 guys that I kind of can go to. So I'm glad I have one. That's important to me. We did a show about Rancid last year, like we just mentioned, and I think at some point I've heard you say Rancid is your favorite band. Is that accurate?
I'm not someone who can like settle on something and stay there, but I think as the rotation of favorite bands, if you look at it, Rancid has spent the most time in that, slot. Consistently, they have been in my top 5, since 1996.
Okay. So they could be replaced. Like, something could happen where it's like, yep, this is it. This is the new favorite.
Yeah, I mean, I think because I like to still go out and find new music, it's possible. But I think it's more that I'll find something new, and because it's new, there's so much more to explore, and so it'll kind of take up all the headspace for a while. But Rancid, more often than not, comes back to that spot. There's probably 4 or 5 bands, like I said, that'll rotate through, and Rancid's in that continuously in that top 5. So that's a long way of saying, yeah, they're probably my favorite band.
They're probably your favorite band, but could be replaceable. It's not like I've been asked this question about Five Iron. My response is no. There's just no chance at this point. There's too much blood in the water for me. I don't know if that's a proper analogy, but it's not happening for me that they're going to be replaced. It would have to be a miracle. But if it sounds like it's possible.
It's possible, but I mean, it'd be a tough hill to climb. I'll just say that.
So, I mean, top 5. So do you think if it was going to, it's not likely it's going to be one of those top 5s that would even replace it too, because I'm going to make an assumption that your top 5 bands, not all of them are active. Like, because I'm guessing there's a couple older punk bands in there that are just, you're not going to get new music from them. So it'd be really hard for them to kind of usurp. And you're familiar, like for me, The Clash were kind of a late find, but it was just because it was like, oh yeah, I've heard all their hits. And then I actually took that deep dive and I was like, oh, these guys are better than everything else I listen to. Why are they not my favorite band? But I can't imagine that really happening for you.
No, I mean, you're spot on. A lot of my favorites are no longer making new music. I think Rancid's probably one of the few that is still making music regularly. So, yeah I mean, it's not like Johnny Cash's Ghost is going to come back and throw together American 7, So it's like it's Clash, it's Johnny Cash, it's the Specials. There's a theme there I'm sure you're picking up on. But
yes, I'm picking it up. Black and white, that's the theme.
Yeah, there you go.
It's a lot of black and white photos from those bands. I mean, it actually is. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, monochrome is the theme.
This cover is black and white with a little red. It's like, that's funny. Awesome. Well, I was asked that question when I was a guest on Eric McClanahan's podcast, and I was like, oh, it's a good question for people who kind of have a definitive favorite band. So awesome. Well, with that out of the way, I think we got a lot to say about this album. Let's dive in and tackle this sucker. For All right, so like we said, we're talking about ... and Out Come the Wolves. I think that's technically the official title.
Yes, ellipses and Out Come the Wolves.
Ellipses. So I'm just, from this point on, I'm just going to say and Out Come the Wolves. Everybody can assume the ellipses. August 22nd, 1995. So again, like we said, celebrating a 30-year anniversary. And I feel really good about that date. It is a Tuesday. I've started to do this now with a whole bunch of stuff because before July of 2015, everything was on a Tuesday. So this is a Tuesday. This is a big enough release, so I feel pretty good about that date. Again, August 22nd. This was their third studio album, and it is produced by Jerry Flynn, who replaced Brett Gurewitz, is how I want to say that last name. So he was it was Jerry Flynn had replaced Brett. And some of the people that Jerry has worked with, it is Jawbreaker, Dancehall Crashers, which has a connection to this band, I believe, Goo Goo Dolls, Weezer, Pennywise, The Suicide Machines, The Offspring, MXPX, Blink-182, AFI, Sum 41, Alkaline Trio, Green Day, MXPX a second time on my notes, and Rancid. So obviously a theme there. A lot of those punk and some hardcore bands, and then Weezer thrown in there, and the Goo Goo Dolls. Although Goo Goo Dolls at one point were kind of more of a punk band, I think. So anyway, that's Jerry Flynn. That's the producer. I don't know a whole ton about him, although that name sounds so familiar. Because probably he's done a whole bunch of those punk records. I mean, that's really is it, probably more than anything. So, any thoughts on Jerry?
No, it's not ringing a bell for me.
Yeah, he's hold on one second. Some of those, so those are some of the bands. Holy cow! He's also worked on Alvin and the Chipmunks, A Very Merry Chipmunk. He was an assistant engineer on that.
But he wasn't involved with the Chipmunk Punk album?
Not I don't know. I haven't maybe gotten that far in his Wikipedia page. So he did the mixing on Dookie. So he didn't produce it. So it just feels like an industry guy, right? Like A Boy Named Goo. That's the Goo Goo Dolls album that I think was one of their big hits. It's their one from 1994. He did the engineering and mixing. So a lot of mixing. He did the mixing on Lockjaw by the Dancehall Crashers. He's done the mixing on Insomniacs. That feels like that's where he's done a lot of his work. Is this just his mixing? Because this is 1995. Where's this album? Oh, there it is. Yeah, producing and mixing. Presidents of the United States, their album number 2, he did the mixing on. He did the mixing on Destruction by Definition. We were talking about that one a little earlier. So, it looks like mostly mixing more than producing. But, yeah, mostly mixing for a lot of these.
Well, and that makes sense, too, because when you kind of think about the trajectory of Rancid at this point, they had just kind of finished up their decision on how they were going to go based on the success of Let's Go. Because Let's Go was the album that really got them on the radar of the music industry. There was a huge bidding war. Like Madonna ended up, because she owned a record label, trying to get them to come to hers.
Yeah.
And they decided to stay with Epitaph, partly out of allegiance to kind of that punk rock ethos and wanting to stay independent. But because I think they wanted the freedom to be able to do their version of music. And so if you're going to go and kind of plant that flag, it makes sense that they would then step into, because if you look at the record sleeve, it says produced by Jerry Flynn and Rancid.
Finn.
So my guess is this was something where they wanted the guy who had the know-how, and they're collaborating with him to get the sound they want. Because they're basically saying, we're going to keep ownership, we're going to keep our hand on the tiller, not let somebody else come in and say, because we're investing all this money, we're going to tell you what to do. We are the masters of our direction. And then this would be somebody who could really partner with them to say, this is how you would achieve what you want. And at the same point has seen enough other, musical acts where he could provide some additional direction too. So it kind of makes sense to me when you think about where they were at the time.
Yeah. And even the name of the album is specifically a reference to that bidding war and all that nonsense. Like, that is what they're saying, is like, we got popular. And I think this is, like, for a non-major label, this has got to be one of the biggest albums ever for a non-major label. Because, and I know that Epitaph or whatever this is on, yeah, Epitaph is not, they're not tiny by any means, but like, this is not a, one of those massive record labels, and this thing is a huge seller. So they really did own it, and I think it probably paid off. It probably is still paying some of Epitaph's bills, to be honest. Probably still allows them to take chances.
Yeah, I was listening to an interview, I forget with who, I think it was with Brett Gurewitz, and there was like 2 albums that really blew up Epitaph. And I mean, they were like a little punk label. It's super indie, and it was Offering Smash, followed up by Rancid, and they sold so much that they were, in order to avoid, there's something about avoiding taxes, or how they had the company set up. Like, the mailroom guy was getting like 6-figure Christmas bonuses because of how well they did with these formerly super underground independent artists that just exploded, in that 95, 96 era.
Yeah. Well, it Smashes like 94, isn't it? I think. I want to say Smash is 94, Let's Go is 94, and then this is 95. I mean, yeah, if you have all 3 of those records, I mean, Smash is, that surprises me. I didn't even realize it was on Epitaph, because that's another one that's just such a commercial standard,
Yeah, I think it was Smash. Maybe it was the one before that.
Is.
But
yep, I just looked it up.
But yeah, it's
on Epitaph.
Yeah, there was,
came out in April of 94.
There was it was not something they were intending to market for that effect. It just hit. The timing was right. So
yep. Yeah, the only one they didn't have was they didn't. Is Stranger Than Fiction, is that on Epitaph too?
I think so. I think so.
Yeah. Well, originally it was on Atlantic, and then it was reissued on Epitaph.
Okay. And that has Tim from Rancid on one of the songs. He does.
Dookie is the one they don't own,
right?
Because that's on what label is that on? I'm looking it up. Reprise Records. So yeah, like those big 4 or 5 punk albums in 94, 95. Epitaph is more than half of them. That's pretty crazy. So the other thing to note about the cover is that it is a bit of a tribute to Minor Threat's cover, the guy sitting on the porch. That's what I found on Wikipedia. I don't know if that's just somebody made that up later, but there you go. It definitely has the feel of it. I think it's a fairly iconic record cover. Like it stands out. Everybody knows what it is. I think if you're going to say what's a Rancid album and what does it look like that is the one that everybody goes to. I feel like this one with the guy with the crazy mohawk sitting on the stairs. So this album would produce only 3 singles, which we'll talk about later because I'm actually surprised by that. But it's the ones everybody knows. It's Roots Radical, Time Bomb, and Ruby Soho. Those were mainstays of the alternative and the hard rock stations. Not just the college ones, not just the undergrounds, but everyone. And that'll play in My Story for sure. So those 3 singles were out there. I'm going to leave more conversation for those for songs and for introduction to the band, but those are the 3 singles. And then this is a highly praised album. The reviews are all overly positive. Just Entertainment Weekly, which, the super punk magazine that Entertainment Weekly is, gave it an A+. Los Angeles Times, 3 out of 4. NME actually only gave it a 7 out of 10. So Rolling Stone's album guide gives it a 4 out of 5. Tons of high praise for this upon its release, and I think in retrospect. It would peak at number 45 on the Billboard 200 album charts, which I'm actually kind of surprised it wasn't higher, to be totally honest, but 45 still pretty good for, again, this little tiny punk label. In the UK, it would go gold, and in the United States, it would go platinum. So huge selling. I mean, this is a huge seller still to this day. I made that joke that I bet you this still pays some of the bills at Epitaph, because I think still to this day, people go back and buy this album. I know I bought it on vinyl. We have our vinyls up. I know I bought it on vinyl, and it's a reissue from a couple years ago because I don't have the patience to chase. So
Yeah, I've probably bought. I don't think I bought it on cassette, but I know I've bought the CD at least twice. And then I have the vinyl. It was secondhand because it was in between pressings, and so that was the only way to get it. But yeah, it's one like if you don't have a copy, even with streaming, it's kind of like, oh, I should go pick it up.
yeah, I have a CD copy in my car that's been in my car for a long, long time. And then when I got into vinyl, this was one that I wasn't going to go chase an original pressing because my guess is those are a pretty penny. But I got a reissue one. I was like, all right, I'm snagging that. It's nice, easy, cheap. I think I got it from some record store here in the Twin Cities, and I was like, oh, this is worth my $22 for sure. So, the other funny thing about the vinyl, I will say, is that there are 10 songs on side A and 9 songs on side B. It is another Rancid album because we covered Let's Go last year, where they. No fear of just packing in as many songs as they possibly can onto an album. So,
and I think they did even more on the one after this.
I think they did, didn't they? Let's see. I'm going to look it up. Life Won't Wait, which we will cover if the show's still going.
I want to say 22. Is it 22 tracks?
2 years? 3 years? Yeah. So support the show so we can talk about it in 3 years. 22 songs on that. Plus, if you get the Japanese album, there's 23 songs on that. So, anything else to add on my fun facts? I didn't have a ton of other ones, which is actually kind of surprising.
I think that's fine because I bet you this is an album that's been discussed so many times in blog articles, podcasts. Like, we're not going to scratch the surface on the fun facts about this album. So, I think if you like it, go looking for it. There's no shortage.
Yeah, I will say there's some albums that I cover that it's like I have one coming up where there's not even a Wikipedia page. If you really are interested in learning more, there's tons of, even just the Wikipedia page is worth a half-hour read, and it's got plenty of stuff on it. So, like BuzzFeed included the album at number 14 on their 36 pop punk albums you need to hear before you effing die. That's right.
Yeah, that sounds like AI content to me.
A little of this is going to be a bit of a retread from our conversation about Let's Go last year, but how is it that you discovered this album? And I think this is directly tied into that conversation. So just refresh everybody. How did you discover this album?
Yeah, this was my introduction to Rancid. So I wasn't cool enough to be listening to Let's Go or the self-titled. I heard it on the radio. This was in rotation fairly heavily on Rev 105. Which was our local, completely independent alternative music station. And it was one that just had my attention right away. I heard it and it was just like stuck in my head. I think I ended up going to the library. The library had a copy of it. This would have been 96. So this was probably the middle of my sophomore school year that it really got on my radar, and got it from the library. And I think as I was reflecting on it, what's really interesting is I don't know if it would have had as big of an impression on me if this hadn't been one of the first albums that my dad, who was starting to pick up on me branching out musically, like went and read the CD case, where it opened up the CD case and read the liner notes and the lyrics, and like actively questioned me on, should you be listening to this?
Sure. Yep.
And I don't even remember which song it was. It was probably She's Automatic, but there was something about one of the lines, and he's like, should you be putting this into your mind? Is this, would Jesus listen to this? Kind of a conversation. And that hadn't happened with music before. And when you combine the fact that, it's a fairly tame punk album.
Yeah, it is.
It's not Dead Kennedys. It's not
Yeah.
One of these gutter punk or crack rock steady albums that's just pure like anti everything. But that was the response, and there was a part of me was just like, I just like this more now, and that encouraged kind of the repeat listening, and ultimately me going out and getting a copy. And the more you listen to the album, the deeper I got hooked on this band and on this album.
Yeah. So my conversation like that, which is ironic considering my musical upbringing, because my dad listened to the Beatles and Bob Dylan, and not just the Christian Bob Dylan, but the everybody gets stoned, let's get stoned Bob Dylan. I mean, Derek and the Dominoes, all those, drug influenced bands. My conversation was about Dookie, which I would say in comparison to this album, Dookie's much more foul. It's
more crude, but more crude language.
Crude, that's a much better word. Yeah. And so that's where my conversation happened, was around Dookie. My dad read the lyrics and was like, do you know what they're talking about here? And I was like, I do know what they're talking about, Dad, hats off to my dad. I've said this before on at least one podcast where he didn't shy away from the conversation. I was proud of him for actually sticking through. But yeah, you're right. Like, that is interesting that this album, because outside of, She's Automatic, they, the GD that they throw out there in the middle, I can imagine that might have turned people off. But in general, it's not like they're like overtly like, I want to kill the police and all these, it's just not that.
Yeah. I mean, definitely Let's Go was a lot more confrontational, anti-authoritarian, definitely anti-police. And it was weird that this was the one. And I'm sure, going back to that cover art conversation, like if you look at this, you're probably like, oh, these guys are dangerous,
Yeah. Well, and even like the 3 singles that were, because my introduction is radio as well, and it's Rev 105 and 93 The Edge. They were playing this, on those were the 2 stations, and I feel really lucky actually to have had 2 stations like that. The 93 Edge was just your standard alternative mainstream radio station, but then Rev 105 really was an anomaly that I don't think you'll ever see ever again anywhere. It's just because radio's dead, and the closest thing we have is The Current. And after the news this week, honestly, I don't know how much longer The Current will be around. I mean, I just think those sorts of things are going to be in trouble. And it was truly like, it was really independent. And so I do remember hearing this, but that also even ties into like how non-confrontational this album may be. I mean, those were huge radio hits that were like very, very radio friendly. Like, these are gutter punk looking kids who knew how to make, really, really radio friendly songs. All 3 of those hits, I feel like, are just not, if they're not made for radio, they just absolutely work in the time and for radio. So it is interesting, that non-confrontational nature of it. And I don't think it's, it's an interesting aspect I've never thought about.
Back in the hole where they got him living like a rabbit, he's smarter than that. 9 lives like a cat, 15 years old, take him to the youth authority home. First thing you learn, you gotta make it in this world alone. Black coat, white shoes, black hat, Cadillac, yeah. The boy's a time bomb. Black coat, white shoes, black hat, Cadillac, yeah. The boy's a time bomb. Now he's gone, now he got.
Here's the big one. What is it that you love about this album?
Oh, there's so much to love, but I think
strap in, everybody.
If you if you boil it down, there's a couple things that as I was trying to write it out to get my thoughts collected. Number one is Matt Freeman. I'd started playing bass at that point, and there's just something so different about the way he was playing bass than anything I'd heard before that point. I mean, there's absolutely talented bass players out there. There are people that are super skilled at bass, but I didn't hear Rush and think, oh wow, he's playing crazy bass lines. I love this. And, you get a little bit of, with Dookie also being in rotation, songs from Dookie being in rotation, hearing Mike play bass, and he's no slouch either, but just the Matt Freeman bass lines are so well put together in that, on the 3 radio singles, he's playing a lot, but it's not overtaking any of the rest of the instruments. It's really adding a lot to kind of the density of the song. And, it was one of those things where it's like, oh, I need to go find the tab to learn how to play this. And then, within 5 minutes realizing I am going to give up because I'm likely to never be this good. So number 1 is Matt. I think number 2 is the aesthetic. You go back to the album cover. You commented on how they look, and I remember having, I think it might have been a Rolling Stone that they were featured in, and this would have been in my junior year. So this would have been like 1997 probably. So they didn't have an album out at that point. But I think they had been touring, and I don't even think they'd started working on Life Won't Wait yet. But there was an article about them, and just the pictures from the concert, and you got Tim with the big spiky mohawk jumping around with his beat up Gibson guitar, and then there's Lars, and he looks different every month. But I think that was also when he had a big mohawk, and there was an aesthetic to what they did, but they also had Matt, who just kind of looked like a guy. Right. He's never been the one that had a outfit or a persona. He let the bass do the talking for him. He's just a big dude with a goatee, and then Brett, their drummer, who was probably the one I had the closest match to aesthetically, where he just looked like a car guy. He was, he's usually kind of slick back, almost pompadour haircut with either those lounge shirts that a lot of us wore at the time, or just like a wife beater and cuff jeans. So there was a little bit of variety, but there was definitely an aesthetic of most of the band members, and then everything that they did. The logo, all of the artwork that they chose up until that point. You see a Rancid album, it's a Rancid album. There's no guessing.
Yeah, I knew I was never going to be able to be as punk as they were. Like I felt like, I can be as punk as Green Day is. Like I can wear, I can change my hair color, and I can get some piercings, and I can probably pull that off. But like the leather, the jackets and the boots and all the things that they were doing, I knew I was never going to be as punk as they were, because I remember seeing those music videos and being like, yeah, they are a look. There is no way around it. And I knew there's no way I was going to pull it off in Woodbury, Minnesota. It just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, well, the mean streets of Rosemont led me to believe I could. You've mentioned in the past, when you got Poking At Ya or Teenage Politics, whichever one, you saw MXPX, and you're like, oh, this is going to be my personality for the next year. And that was really, for this album, that was me. I mean, this was that kind of critical point for me where I was really pivoting away from the quote unquote alternative, which was mostly like the dregs of grunge, and then whatever was coming next. And so I got rid of the bowl cut. I got rid of the baggy, striped sweaters and stuff. And I was kind of going more towards that punk aesthetic. And, I sent you a picture. It wasn't directly from 97, but, that really was kind of a conglomeration of the band. I didn't fixate on one of them, but there was a lot of choices I made from a fashion and from a tattoo perspective. They were driven by this album. I mean, there's a spider web on my elbow because of that album cover.
Yeah, that is, I think that is some of the power of it, because it does feel like if you put this on, even to this day when I'm in my 40s, like this still does make me feel like, yeah, I want to I want to be a little punk rock and I want to be a part of a revolution, but I got to go, log into my corporate America job and drive my minivan to soccer practice. So I will be just the music I'll have. So that's cool that you actually went through with all the tattoos. I never pulled the trigger on any of them. May surprise people, but I also just a comment on Matt's bass playing. I do think it is, for me, it's also one of those first albums, and probably more the singles, radio singles, because I probably did not own this for actually a while. If I'm being totally honest, it was not. I probably didn't even own this in the 90s. It was probably post college before I got my first copy of it. But there is like you brought up Green Day, because Green Day is my like kind of introduction to punk from like a real mainstream perspective. And I would say that at least MXPX, their bass playing, Mike's bass playing is probably closer to what I think, Rancid's going for and what, Freeman's going for here. Because like when I listen to Green Day, the bass just kind of melds into the guitar. It's almost like a second guitar, and it's still unique, and it's still there are moments where it stands out. But like there are whole moments and whole songs and whole portions of songs where the bass is the instrument that everything else kind of feels built around. And I think that is very unique and was probably an introduction. Like I listened to those singles today even, and I'm just like, yeah, the bass is the main instrument on some of these. It is what it feels like, which I had never experienced before. So I think it's not just that it's good, but it's like it sings. And I think a lot of what like one of my favorite bands, the Dingies, do is like very much like that bass playing is very much inspired right here, and how they kind of let that bass be an instrument, not just kind of like, oh, all right, I'm here to support the drums, but really be a frontline, mainline instrument on an album. The other thing that I will mention is I love the dueling vocals. I love how you get Lars and Tim going back and forth. I think I even mentioned it last year that I think on that album, there's only one song that Lars really sings on Let's Go. And on this album, he gets a lot more of it. And yes, a lot of it's on the second half of the album. And it's like only like 9 songs of the 19, they do the dueling vocals. And it's only one of the singles. I think Roots Radical is the only single where they actually do the dueling vocals. But I think that does add a really nice dynamic to this album. I really like when they go back and forth. So that's another thing that I think really makes this album stand out from maybe the last one.
Well, I think the last thing I'd say that I love about this album is that it really did, at a time when I was looking to learn more and, hear more different music than what I was getting access to even on the radio. They're bouncing around to different styles. There is a lot in there that's all kind of reflecting different types of underground, punk and punk adjacent music. But again, it wasn't like a one-trick pony. It was, you get some rockabilly tinged stuff. You get, the ska, you get the punk, and, you get some variety even within the different subgenres of punk, which, they did a good job of that on the previous album of giving you a little bit of different flavors of punk. But I think with this one, you get a little bit more of that Oi influence, where it's a little bit more rock than just like the 3 chords and fast as you can, And I was primed and ready to learn more. And, on this album, you get a lot of that different variety, and it wasn't kind of that jarring switch. Every song is such a departure that it takes a while to figure it out. I think they did a really good job in how they tracked it, how they set up the tracks, and just how they blended it together. So it felt cohesive, but it did give you that good variety of different sounds to enjoy.
And I mean, the fact that it's 49 minutes, it's 19 songs, it is not a short album, but yet it feels like, I don't feel like I get tired of this. Like, I just don't feel like I get, like, when I listen through to this, like, that's pretty telling to me that you have 19 songs, 49 minutes. And yes, there's enough variety on here that you're not at any point being like, I'm not sitting there going like, okay, all right, let's go. You know, the A+ from Entertainment Weekly, Punk Magazine Entertainment Weekly, is well deserved because it is just, there are, we'll get to it in a second, but like 3 singles. I said that because I'm amazed there was only 3. There's so many songs on here that probably could have been a single if they really would have pushed it.
I watched 1,000 people go from work. Yeah! Hanging on the corner on 52nd and Broadway. A car's passing by, but none of them seem to go my way. New York City, I wish I was on the highway. Back to Olympian.
This being your favorite band, I feel like I can say this with confidence. Why is this an album that still holds up for you or is important to you to this day?
Well, I think it's important to me because, like I was saying, I was at a point where I was ready to pivot musically, and they provided that the mix of flavors that I really was going down and pursuing for the next 5 or 6 years. I think there wasn't a lot of music that wasn't an influence on this album that I was pursuing. I made the joke at the top that, Johnny Cash is one of my top 5. That's probably the only music that I was digging into, in the preceding decade that you can't see a direct impact on this album. I'm sure there's someone smarter than me with more musical education that could be like, oh no, it's really obvious, Aaron, it's right here. Because Johnny Cash gets around. Everyone likes to name check him. But other than that, everything else really, there was either an influence on this album or was influenced by this album. So, it's really that seed that grew into what I was listening to going forward. And, I think more than any other artist at that point in time, this was different and dangerous, but it was also infectious. Like you couldn't listen to, and not just the singles. I think most of the songs on this album, they get stuck in your head. You're humming it, and it is unique to have music that has the pop sensibilities that these songs display. Like understanding the importance of a hook, the importance of some of those transitions from the chorus to the verse, just the way that they played off of each other's voices, Tim and Lars, as they're singing, and the harmonies that they did. I mean, it gets stuck, but then you look at the album cover, you do listen to some of the themes that maybe aren't as dangerous as my dad thought, but still, they're calling out injustice. They're still kind of keeping that edge that they demonstrated so front and center and let's go, and that undercurrent is still there. So I really, it was important to me for those 2 reasons. That's why I still come back to it. Because at the end of the day, I'm probably smiling if I'm listening to this album.
So is this your favorite Radiohead album?
Radiohead?
I'm sorry, Radiohead. Jeepers. Is this your Jeepers? It is.
I'm like, I missed a joke somewhere.
Yeah, I am just dumb. Is this your favorite Rancid album? Jeepers.
No, it's not. Life Won't Wait is my favorite Rancid album. Okay. This was my favorite Rancid album until Life Won't Wait came out.
Okay. So it got 3 years to sit there and then got replaced. Is this number 2?
It probably is now. There was a good point in time where Indestructible was there as my number 2.
Okay.
Because that's also a real solid album. And that's probably one where if you look musical influence wise, like Indestructible has a lot of the same kind of musical DNA as this one does, whereas Life Won't Wait's really different.
Yeah. It's hard to tell it's the same band at times.
Yeah.
It's so different.
Yeah. And you know, the band that Rancid gets compared to the most is the Clash. I mean, and I understand why. I mean, there's definitely, it's a punk band that's very influenced by Jamaican music. You got two lead singers with distinctive, different voices,
Yep.
who both contribute to writing music to shape the band. But this album isn't the album where they're trying to be the Clash. I think this album is most influenced by the Specials. At least on the reggae and ska tinge songs. There's definitely some songs where you can hear they're pulling Mick Jones's guitar tone in, you know.
Yeah.
But I think the album where they're really channeling the Clash is Life Won't Wait, and this one is equal parts, if not heavier, influence of that two-tone sound and specifically the Specials.
And that is, I mean, that plays into why it's so important for me, is that I don't think ska is used. Like, at no point do they go pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, or like, I think when this was on the radio, maybe they do, but I don't know. And on the radio, they wouldn't be like, all right, well, this is, you know, when they're playing Ruby Soho, they're not saying, oh, and here's, you know, or Time Bomb, like, oh, here's a ska song from, you know, Rancid. I don't think I ever heard that word thrown around when it was on the radio. Maybe it was occasionally, but like, this is that first introduction for me. This is absolutely my first introduction to the ska sound. Like, I am not familiar with Skank and Pickle or Fishbone before this. I am not familiar with the Specials just because of the way I was raised. It is later. It's after, I mean, the embarrassment of it all is it's after when Sell Out by Real Big Fish is absolutely the, like, oh, I think I like this. And, you know, that's when maybe that's around that. I don't know when that came out, but I want to say that came out in 96, and that's kind of when it happens. And then I get into, I get into the Supertones and 5-Iron and all that stuff. And that's when I start to look for those old two-tone bands. But like, without knowing it, this was my introduction, and ska is a lifelong obsession for me. And this is absolutely one of those things. Like, there's enough ska influence and ska stuff on this that it's like, yeah, it's not a ska album, but it's paving the way for me in a lot of ways. And it is absolutely, and even like my current favorite active, because I still don't really count 5-Iron as active, ska band is Catbite, and no horns. This is no horns. I mean, it's, well, there's some, but you know, that organ that you get on, you know, Time Bomb, you know, the organ, my goodness, the organ on that, it's so good. And it is absolutely like, I can just feel this in my veins for the next 30 years at this point, because it planted those seeds of, I like this more than anything else. What is going on? You know? So yeah. For me, it does come in at number 53 on my all-time favorite album list. So just to throw that out there. And even that, I feel like I need to reevaluate, because I think I have Dookie higher, and maybe I've got that wrong. You know, I feel like I've been working on the updated version of that list, and I feel like this one I might need to do one more reevaluation on. And it is my second favorite album from 1995. My guess is there's no way you would guess the first album, because it's one that a lot of people haven't heard of. But I will be covering it on the show in about a month. So yeah, number 2 for me. But yeah, I think there is something about this that that ska stuff, that ska punk stuff just got in my veins. All right, let's talk about some of our favorite tracks. I don't think we're going to cover all 19 because, you know, at some point we got to go to bed. But let's talk about a couple of these. So, throughout, I'll let you talk about as many of them as you want to. So, I don't know if you want to go in order of track listing and some of your favorites, or if you want to go your favorite. But what song do you feel like we need to talk about first?
Let's start with Roots Radical because track
Okay.
listing wise, I think that's one of the first ones.
It's number 3. Yep.
And it is. I think it was the third one I heard. Honestly, in my brain, I remember hearing Time Bomb first, and then Ruby Soho, and then this one, because I don't know that this got as much radio play here in the cities, or at least at the time I was listening, but it's a fun song. It is one of the more Clashy influenced songs.
Yeah.
But oh my gosh, the opportunity for misheard lyrics. Like, I don't think I'm singing along and I have got no clue what I'm saying.
Sure.
There's a lot of words, and the way that Tim sings, I didn't know, and I didn't care because it was so catchy. I was just singing along with it, and there's something burned into my mind around that specific thing. Is I remember I was leaving school, and I had my Discman, and I had this album in there. And I'm listening to Roots Radical, and of course it wasn't one of those nice Discmans, so it didn't have the anti-skip. And I must have moved the wrong way, and it bumped it. And it bumped it at just the right moment that it actually elongated the pronunciation that Tim singing one of the lyrics, and I actually understood what he was saying. And it was like, oh, her blonde ambition saw nothing wrong. Well, that makes a lot more sense than what I was saying. Because blurred ambition, that I was like, oh, that's really deep. Oh, no, it's her blonde ambition. Okay. So I still love that track.
Yeah, that one feels iconic. It was released as a single on August 7th, so about 10 days before, a couple weeks before the actual album released. Ironically, Time Bomb and Ruby Soho were also both released as singles, but not till November. And Time Bomb was released as a single November 1st, and Ruby Soho was released November 3rd. So I don't know, like, this must have been blowing up, and they're like, quick, get 2 more singles out there. And they threw them out there because it's, not till November that those become, singles that are out there on the radio. So yeah, I think Roots Radical is I still remember the video for it. I feel like it is just one of those ones where that's a chorus that kind of makes me want to pump your fists in the air. And yeah, it's not my favorite Rancid song, but it's hard not to be one of the ones that, if you're like, show me a Rancid song, it's hard for me not to kind of point my finger at that as one of those 5 most iconic Rancid songs, even if it's not your favorite.
Yeah, and then, you have to give it credit also for being kind of the brand of one of the best series of compilations ever, which is the Give 'Em the Boot comps, which was on Tim's record label, Hellcat Records, a subsidiary of Epitaph. And I think they did 4 or 5 different comps under the Give 'Em the Boot. And those were so formative for me because it wasn't even like the normal comp where it was all just people on the same label. It was like all the kind of music that basically was the DNA for Rancid. So you had, it'd be interesting to look at the anniversary dates for some of those, because those would be fun to talk through. But I Give 'Em the Boot, like that's synonymous with Rancid in my mind, and then it all started with that song. So
yeah, absolutely. What's another song you want to talk about?
Let's talk about Time Bomb, right? That is, in my mind, the superior single. Anyway, I think there's some benefit that they didn't lead with their strongest single in my mind, because it's such a good song, and that is, I was listening to it kind of with a different view than normally I listen to it just to get swept up in the music, but I was listening to it, and it's like you said, what was the ska that was happening at this point in time in more mainstream music, acknowledging that there was lots of bands doing lots of different versions of ska at the time, but I lived in the suburbs of the Midwest, so I didn't hear that, But what I would hear following this was Real Big Fish, Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, Save Ferris, which is a very different type of ska than Time Bomb. And Time Bomb really is it's the blueprint of the Specials and how they did ska, because it is, the chickadee chickadee guitar is very much what you would hear on a Specials album. Now the production quality is much better than you would get from any of the Specials work. Obviously it's 15 years later, so you're going to have some improvements in recording technology. I think they spent a little more time to get it right, but the tone and the pacing, it's more of a two-tone song than a third wave song. And even just the contrast of kind of the typical two-tone upstroke paired with a little bit more twangy and distorted guitar, that was very much a signature of the Specials, because they had two guitar players, one of whom could play on the upbeat and one of them who couldn't. And so that's why you got that contrast of the chickadee, chickadee, chickadee guitar, along with kind of almost a rockabilly, twangy, distorted guitar sound. And that Time Bomb had that. And so that is, aside from just loving the song and all the memories associated with it, I think it really is giving you a peek at, these guys were listening to the Specials, and really that is part of their DNA that you see.
Yep. Yeah. Even like those first 10 seconds are just feel so iconic. Like it kicks in, and it's like, there's something about this song. Like I think it is my favorite off the album. It might be my favorite Rancid song. And just shout out, I mentioned it before, the organ on it. Like that is, I think I am a sucker for that organ. I've mentioned it on a couple shows recently, and like it's what made me discover, like when I discovered Elvis Costello, which was only within the last 10 years, I was like, oh, this is what everybody was doing with that organ. Like, oh, wow, oh, okay, like this is it. And I know that a lot of the two-tone bands were doing it too, but like it all became clear to me when I heard Elvis Costello how much I loved Elvis Costello, and I was like, oh, because I love that organ. It's Paul Jackson of the Uptones, which is another ska band from, I want to say from LA is where they're from. I think I could be wrong, but it's Paul Jackson. He did the organ on this song. So shout out to him. There is something so iconic about this song, and that it just makes me, that it makes so much sense to me, because I loved this song, that when I was introduced to ska, all of a sudden I was like, oh, I want this to be everything for me, going forward music-wise. So, yeah. So that was single number 2. Do we just want to cover the 3 singles? Then we can go to some of the other ones? Do we want to talk about Ruby Soho?
I don't have to. It didn't make my list.
Destination Unknown. I love that song.
The floor is yours.
No, I love Ruby Soho. I think it's a great choice for single number 3. Now, granted, again, I think any of the first 5 songs can be singles. I absolutely believe that. But I love Ruby Soho. I love the Destination Unknown, Ruby Soho. I'm all for it. So I think it's a good choice for third. I think it might even, I know Roots Radical is the iconic one, and Time Bomb is like I just said, my favorite. I might like Ruby Soho as a song more than Roots Radical, but that's potentially just me. So if that's all we have to talk about for that one, then that's perfectly fine.
He said his name on the marquee, but she will never understand. Once again he's leaving, and she's there with a tear in her eye. Embraces with a warm gesture, it's time to say goodbye. Destination now, Ruby Soho. Destination now, Ruby Soho.
Well, I mean, very similar to Time Bomb. Daly City Train is very Jamaican influence. You get a little bit of kind of the almost like a steel drum sound on how tightly the drum is tuned. So Brett does a good job of mimicking. Again, it's that kind of two-tone sound with the drums that really, I think, and this one is even I think more front and center than Time Bomb. And it's a fun ska song. Is I guess all I could say.
It's a ska song for sure. Yeah.
But again, it's not the ska that we saw in the coming the years that preceded it. It wasn't ska core. It wasn't,
Yeah.
it wasn't ska punk. That's the interesting thing is you look at those dudes and you're like, oh, they have a ska song, and you immediately think it's probably ska punk, and it's not. It's like
Yeah.
it is very much more to the previous generation of ska that was available at the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I really, really enjoyed listening to that song.
Yeah, definitely another strong ska song that Jamaican influences. You mentioned earlier of like a punk band with strong Jamaican influences. So yeah. All right, what other songs we want to talk about?
I mean, we got to say Maxwell Murder as a bass player.
Yeah.
Like that is the icon. Well, and that kicks off the album, right? I mean, that's
Yep. That's track one.
That's track one. I mean, that is a statement.
Yeah.
And to have that song that has like the bass solo of all bass solos it's awesome. I just, I don't know what the song's about, but I like listening to it because of the solo, if nothing else.
Right. Well, you talk about misheard lyrics. Like that's got to be one, right? There's a couple points in there where if you're not reading the lyrics, you're just thinking, is he just going? That's kind of what I think he's saying. I don't think he's actually saying anything, but like the bass on that one, the bass tone is so clear, it's so forward, and it's so like, hey, we have the best bass player in the world. We're gonna put him up front and center and just let him show off. It's a great opening track. I love it.
And it is a going back to what I was saying about the tracking was a decision that worked out well on this album. I mean, you start with that, and it could have been the last track on Let's Go, because musically it's very, very it's fast. It is it's all attack, and so it's like we're starting where we left off, picking up where we left off, but then it starts to diverge. So.
Yeah.
If you were someone who's cool enough to have been listening to Let's Go, you're not gonna like, oh, these guys changed. At least not with the first track. It's really showing that DNA is still present.
And I love this is one of the songs that they have the dueling vocals, and I love it that they kind of throw that right in there from the get go, and it's like, hey, this is something, get used to this, that we're gonna dive into this a little.
Yeah, I mean this does, I think, show how Lars is becoming more of an influence in the band, because not just the musically, but I mean dial 99, the 999, that is the emergency code for the UK. You don't dial 911, you dial 999. So that is Lars, who's obsessed with the English oi and street punk stuff. Like I guarantee you that was his idea.
Sure.
So
have you ever seen the IT Crowd?
Oh yeah.
Okay, that skit where they introduced the new emergency number. Oh man, I showed that to my kids and they're like rolling how funny that is. So if you haven't seen that, the IT Crowd may be a little too offensive for some people, but that skit alone is just so worth it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
might have to
show is brilliant.
All right. So that kicks off the album. Let's talk about the second song too, because I meant to mention that all of them could be on there. And I will say the 11th Hour is the one where I love the line, "Do you know where the power lies?" And then this is the one that I was like, oh, they really do. I don't think I catch their Clash influence on Let's Go, but I catch it right here on the 11th Hour. The second track, there's just the guitar tone, you mentioned that earlier, it just starts to have that. And all of a sudden, it was this song that was like, oh, okay, I like that. And obviously, I love the Clash. And I was like, okay, I kind of feel that connection back to them. And it starts right there on that second track for me.
Yeah, I mean, that is like, if you listen to Spanish Bombs by the Clash, there's like those little guitar fills.
Yeah.
Like 90% lifted for this track.
Yeah.
Very, very much wearing their influence on their sleeves there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
If we could use that as a transition, Listed MIA, I mean, that's another one where you get that like mixed guitar tone and playing style is like the introduction to that. It's like, he's closing his eyes and pretending he's standing next to Paul Simonon and Joe Strummer, as he's playing that.
Yeah.
It's so much of the Clash is in there, but then the claps, like my notes are Listed MIA, claps, because the part where they kind of have that breakdown and the band backs off a little bit, and it's just like Lars, doing kind of that repeated refrain of the man, I almost had it, but then there's the clap, 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 clap. I mean, that's your pop sensibilities. Like that's a doo-wop thing, that's not punk rock, but oh my gosh, like that over those lyrics. And it's just a great composition and kind of bringing in something that's a little bit unique, but still, super fun song and definitely still a punk rock song.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alleyways and Avenues is another one that, I go back to. And then, it's one, I think there's not very many songs on this album that don't have like choruses that are meant to be sung along with. It's a very common theme, but I mean, that one is all gang vocals on the chorus. I'm a battering ram coming through to you in every alleyway and every avenue. And that was my first introduction. Like you mentioned, there's nobody yelling "pick it up," but we're yelling "oi oi oi," and you could like
Sure.
I was like, oh, I get this. I understand. This is the part where we all yell "oi oi oi." That's your invitation to participate. And that is the chorus is everybody's part of the band on this song. Even though we only recorded the four of us, if they're playing that, we're all singing along, and it just pulls you you through.
Absolutely. And then what do you think about The Way I Feel as a closer? I think it's a very, very solid closer. Again, I don't have a whole lot to say about it outside of, the Way I Feel, good closer. I don't know. Ending this album is going to be tricky because it does feel fairly epic, but I think it's a solid closer. I approve of it. Again, it's got a nice flow, and it's a nice way to kind of close out this album and get you ready for the next one in 3 years. Because this is the last you would hear from them for 3 years, which is an eternity in 1995. Just when the album cycles were so much shorter, but it's kind of the way they choose to end the album, and I approve. I think it's a good way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not one of my top tracks, but I mean, there isn't a song on this album that I skip over.
Sure.
Yeah. And it maybe it does need to come down a little bit to end. So you do feel like you've got that denouement, as the French would say.
Oh, sure. If you say that's what they'd say, it sounds good to me. I just want to also mention Olympia, Washington, which is an interesting one because this is such a San Francisco band. Like, they are so East Bay. Like, it's, and I don't think Olympia, I think it actually is a reference to Olympia, Washington, I'm assuming, and not some reference to somewhere in the East Bay. I could be wrong, but again, it's another great example of just like, man, every single one of those first 5 songs could easily be a single. And this is another one where just the chorus is so easy to sing along with. And the bass on this one, again, this is another one where his bass line just shines through so strongly. And I think especially not as much, because I don't feel like it's there on those singles, but like not in the way that it's on Maxwell Murder and on Olympia, Washington, or whatever you want to say it. The way his bass line really shines through in those moments.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost a ballad when you think about it, because it's that longing to be somewhere that you're not, and dissatisfaction with where you are. It's a little bit of a departure from the other ones. Like She's Automatic is kind of the one love song on the album, and this is kind of that ballady, angsty, longing track.
Yeah. Yeah. Junkie Man you don't think that's a ballad?
I mean, it could be. If you, I mean,
is. It gets a little weird at the end. talking about the hand and or this, the
The little spoken word interlude.
Yeah, the little spoken word part.
Yeah. No, that's probably my least favorite track on the whole album.
Oh, really? I like that song.
I wouldn't skip it, but
sure.
Yeah, that was probably the most self-serious, taking himself too serious. I mean, that's a very Tim thing, But
sure.
Yeah, did it really need a spoken word interlude with a little bit of like scritchy scratching? Like, did you notice that too? There's like that.
That's right.
Of,
yeah, there's that little part too. Yeah.
And we didn't know that. What 8-9 years later, he'd be forming a rap group, but we should have known it from that song.
I think I missed the Tim Armstrong rap group.
Oh, Transplants?
Was not. Yeah, I was not aware.
Caleb, I'll grab a CD next time I see you. I'll bring it to you. It is an experience.
I'm sure it is. Considering how extreme he is, I can imagine he takes it very, very seriously. Because I don't think he does. Tim. He'll never listen to this. I don't think Tim takes a joke very well. That's my take.
I think you're right. I think very similar to a lot of people who have beaten addiction. There is a level of seriousness with which you approach life once you're past that I can see him having. But
yeah,
not being one of those people, you either. I think you should look up on YouTube the Transplants with Snoop Dogg performance on, I think it was a Nick Cannon show. But yeah, there's and I feel like Rancid was the backup, like the rest of Rancid was playing backup on that one too. So it's just fun to see Tim and Matt and Brandon, their current drummer, and then Snoop Dogg all on stage while Tim's kind of wearing a cross between punk stuff and hood rat style.
Operation Ivy is literally turning over in that grave. All right, one other song that I want to mention, I do love Journey to the End of the East Bay. We mentioned how they're so ensconced in that. I love this song as a kickoff to side B. Again, side A is so strong, again with I think about 5 songs that could be singles. I really like that song as a kickoff to, it's just a great song. It's again, another kind of shows their pop sensibilities. It's one of the longer songs on the album. It's 3 minutes, 11 seconds. They, there's a couple of them that cross the 3-minute mark. There's like 4 of them. But it is one of the longer songs. And that's another one that I really love that song as well.
Yeah. And not realizing how autobiographical it is too. The first 6 years I was listening to that song, it is a good song. And then there's that depth to it that he's kind of telling you the story of Op Ivy.
Yeah. Wonderful segue. The death to
Old Friend's a favorite. It's another one, ska one. So you shouldn't be surprised I'm calling that one out. But that one is another organ heavy song too. So it doesn't have like the iconic line that you get from Time Bomb, but I mean, it's another one where the organ's doing a lot of the heavy lifting and just a fun one, to sing along to. And it just feels like a bright, sunshiny day type of a song.
What's the song, Bright Side and Shiny Day?
I think it's the Partridge Family.
There's one off the Grosse Pointe Blank single as well. I think it's soundtrack. I'm not going to be able to get it. Oh man, AJ's going to be mad at me. I'm glad you mentioned some of them on side B. I do think I've heard the critique that side B gets a little long. I think that Joe Yerke even said it at one point. I think when him and Reese were talking about like favorite albums, I think this is one of Reese's. And I think Joe was like, I think it gets a little long on side B. And it maybe is not as, like, again, the fact that it's 49 minutes, there's not as many maybe iconic moments on it, but I just don't feel like it gets, like, you start losing me on side B. It is, yes, I'm mentioning how many singles could have come off of side A, but I think, again, there's enough of that experimentation that, again, would really show up 3 years later that you kind of start to get them kind of spreading their wings again. And that's where you actually get most of the dueling vocals. The last 4, it's 5 out of the last 6 songs all have the dual vocals, which I think that's also a really great way to bring some energy to the album. I suppose I should mention that Lars has lead vocals on a couple songs too. He has it on Listing MIA, She's Automatic. Those are both ones that he actually has, it's just him. Tim doesn't even sing.
Yeah, and The War's End is another one that he's he's doing that, and that's like pure Billy Bragg energy, like that kind of folk punk that like Frank Turner's probably a good example of that current state. But Billy Bragg was, I mean, he's name checked in the song, so they're obviously not trying to hide the fact. But where it's just the guitar only, and I think that was something that I remember seeing Rancid live one time. They had kind of an interlude in the middle where it was just like Lars and Tim on acoustics doing a few songs, and one of them was a Billy Bragg cover. So, that's another part of their DNA that's coming out in this one that you didn't really get in Let's Go.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, I think we covered enough songs for sure. So.
Reconcile to the belief, consumed and sacred ground for me. There wasn't always a place to go, but there was always an urgent need to belong. Yeah. All these fans and all these people, all these friends, and we were equals, but what you gonna do when everybody goes on with that? Yeah. To the end, I'll journey to the end, to the end, I'll journey to the end, to the end, I'll journey.
All right, final question then. Somebody has not checked this album out, which is a little mind-blowing to me that if you've never gone back and checked this album out. But let's say you haven't. What is your pitch for like, hey, here's the reason to go back and check this album out 30 years later?
What's wrong with you? Why wouldn't you?
I think most people should probably answer that question that way.
Yeah, I mean, like, what you're not gonna listen to Revolver by the Beatles. You're not gonna listen to, Led Zeppelin. Like there are like definitive albums that they've sold a lot. They're iconic, but you got to at least listen to it once. Don't let somebody else's opinion tell you that it's the worst thing ever or it's the best thing ever. I think this is one of those where you should figure it out for yourself. If you haven't listened to it, I mean, come on, Spotify's free. Just pull it up and give it a shot and tell me it's not one of the catchiest, things out there. And if you've got a good reason for not liking it, I'd love to hear.
There you go. We'll give his Instagram where you can find him online. At the end, you can go tell him why
we do that, don't
like
we?
It. Yeah, they're gonna come find. I don't think you're gonna get any takers. And for me, this is so much part of that punk revival in the 90s. Like, this is one of those bands. This is one of those albums you got to throw up there with, Smash by the Offspring, Dookie, this, and then maybe to a lesser extent Against the Grain by Bad Religion. But like, this is so central to that, and it's clearly, I think, led to the whole ska thing that happened. It was even though you're right, it's not ska punk the way those other bands were. It's much more ska, but it's so got its hooks in those revivals that happened in the 90s that it's such I think it's an important album for those reasons. And I love albums like that this is, you get that. And I think it's a great mix too of, that ska feel, the punk feel, the pop feel. Like, this'll make you want to, kind of, put on a jean jacket and kind of feel a little punk rock. If you're feeling like you need a little more of that in your life, I think it can. That aesthetic that we started with, like, it really, really can be one of those things that'll make you, maybe you're not ready for the mohawk, but maybe you are. And this is what's going to push you over and let you finally get that mohawk. Anything else to add on why people should check it out?
No, I would just give you a warning. I mean, it's a gateway drug. This album is a gateway drug to a lot of good music. I mean, that was my experience, and that's been lots of people I've talked to. It is a great entry point into a whole bunch of genres or subgenres of music where there's if there's only one track on this that you like, there's probably a subgenre and 20 other bands that will help fill that out for you.
Yeah, awesome.
She's automatic, so automatic, the way she moves. Situations so tricky, I was feeling so proud. The bass and the drums, the music so loud. She asked me if I would stand at her side like glue that I would to the end of the night. She's automatic.
Well, that is our breakdown of And Out Come the Wolves by Rancid, again released August 22nd, 1985, celebrating a 30-year anniversary. So you challenge people to come fight you about this album. So where can people find you?
I don't think I challenged them to fight me, but I did say I'd like to know
He's
what's
ready to
wrong
fight
with you.
people.
So maybe them's fighting words. Yeah.
You're like the least fighting person I think I've met in the last 10 years.
Yeah, if like I've said, if you want to follow me, prepare to be disappointed and underwhelmed. I'm BootboyMN on the Instas, and don't have a Twitter, and occasionally I lurk in a few different Facebook groups for ska music and things of that nature.
Awesome. We'll make sure you're called out in the notes there, or in the end of the end of the show. I'll have a link to your so people can find your Instagram. So yeah, awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining me. This is great. Our yearly. I don't know what we're gonna do next year. We may not have a Rancid one again. I've started looking at 2026, but we got Destruction by Definition, or Definition by Destruction, or Destruction by Definition.
Yep.
Yeah. So we'll make sure we get that one in for sure. That's one of the ones I want to prioritize next year. So we'll find some other things to talk about. And then I think Bad Operation, you should totally we should see if you can get you on that show when we talk about that later this year.
Awesome.
So yeah.
I'm in.
Awesome. Thanks so much,
All right,
Aaron.
Adios.
Good morning, honey. You're like an old friend, close to me again. Justify my love for you, and I know it runs deep through your body too. From the cold black top to the hot concrete, the old tin band, it ain't so sweet. Good morning, honey. You're like an old friend, close to me again. Good morning, honey. You're like an old friend, come and see me again.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of the Album Anniversary Podcast. Thanks, Aaron, for joining me. Again, it's great to have met somebody who wants to talk about these albums. Again, I made the joke at the beginning. If I want to talk about Jars of Clay, I got 100 people who probably would want to do it. But these albums, less so. So I hope people enjoy hearing. It's a little different, a little, not your standard CCM, which we cover a lot of on this show. I hope people enjoy a little bit of change of pace, and again, just people talking about albums that they love. That is what we're going for, whether that is Jars of Clay or something like this. So thanks, Aaron, for joining the show. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram, on all the social medias. I'm also on Blue Sky. You can also find me on YouTube. You can find the show on YouTube. I think you just search for Caleb the Spy or the Album Anniversary Podcast. Both are pretty easy to find. I do some shorts on there. I'm trying to just keep on going there. So if you can find me on YouTube, I'd love it. That's one other place to subscribe. Like I said, subscribe and share the podcast. It does help. Leave ratings and reviews on anything you can. It does help those numbers. Again, I am not famous. I am not going to be, I didn't start a podcast and then was just gifted 1 million followers because I was in some movie. So just trying to build this show up. So any help by sharing it or leaving reviews and ratings is super helpful. You can always email me, CalebTheSpypodcasts, there's an S at the end, @gmail.com. Again, I think I mentioned it on the show. I got a running list for the rest of this year, and I'm starting to work on the list for next year. So feel free to email me, and I can send you a link to that. And I just if people are interested in doing a show, I take their name. It's no guarantee we'll do it. I can't do every show. I can't do it every album that I want to do or that is even available. So feel free to put your name on one, and I'll start looking at a list. And I try and rotate guests too. So sometimes a number of people sign up, and I kind of have to choose what I think is going to work best. So sometimes it's just scheduling conflicts dictated to. So let me know, though. You can always email me, CalebTheSpypodcasts@gmail.com. If you enjoy this show, you might also enjoy the other podcast I work on. We're currently on a little bit of a hiatus, but it's I Survived Youth Group in the 90s. I work on it with my friend Scott. It's not just a podcast where we reminisce about our youth and our youth group experience, but we're trying to interview fellow 90s and 2000s youth group kids, and just you learn where they're at now. Learn about that youth group experience, learn where they're at now. No right answers, no wrong answers. Just want people to give people a chance to share their experience. Thanks so much for joining me, and we will talk to you soon.
Brother against brother, should be singing with the group. The inner city's burning, yeah, it's screaming black and blue. The power and the passion of 1 million youth. Of a battery rap, coming through to you. In every alleyway and every
interested in playing Throw Burrito in the basement. So
Is that going to interrupt the audio if someone chucks it too hard?
she asked, "Will it interrupt the audio?" And I was like, "Maybe," but I also kind of feel a bit like, go do it. We'll make do. So let's see here. I think we well, probably this is gonna be a little. This is gonna
Feel like it's at the point where I would need to make a call.
Will end in 30 minutes.
Ooh.
Computers will log off in 20 minutes. Please plan accordingly.
Oh, you're getting kicked out of the library.
That's I got 30 minutes, but with the storm coming, I probably need to cut it sooner. But yeah.
El horario de autoservicio
en español.
en 30 minutos. Los ordenadores
You're getting kicked out in Spanish as well. That's funny.
Planifica con base en esto.